G'day viewers, my name is Michael and welcome to Single Racer and welcome to 10 plus decades of outstanding Grand Prix mods for Assetto Corsa. And now you can see them all on display here. Some are from RSS or Race Sim Studios, some from VRC, some from Race Department and even some from Assetto Land, with the occasional official Kunos car thrown in for good measure. But just before we check out the performance of each individual car, I want to say a huge thank you to the official F1 style channel Ferrari-Man601 for making me a better all-round F1 driver. And that's because before I started my channel I actually didn't drive F1 cars. Now I did play Grand Prix Legends, which is naturally a 60s GP car, but not in the truest sense of modern cars with DRS and that other feature that I can never remember the name of. But I've been watching Ferrari Man and to a lesser extent SimRacing604 on how they drive and perform in these cars, and picked up a lot of tips along the way to make me a better all-round F1 driver. And so as a very quick example, you can see the car on the far left, which is the Auto Union Type C. Now I knew it was a great race car, it's a proper race car from Gary Patterson over at Race Department, but I didn't actually know it was an official Grand Prix car. Held races, in the early 30s. And so Ferrari-Man601, in a video of the actual model of this car, filled in all the history for me, and that's what I mean between him and SimRacing604. They've really helped me understand and enjoy F1 racing in Assetto Corsa, and this video was always in my mind to do, but it was a much smaller group of cars, and thanks to that car, but also now just purchasing the 2020 hybrid, the Formula Hybrid from RSS, it completes the set, and I thought this is a great way to explore 10 decades of outstanding Grand Prix cars. And so on that basis, I was very curious to see for myself how 10 plus years of GP F1 racing affected the car's performance over those many decades. But just before we move on to the individual Hotlaps, there's 3 bits of housekeeping that are important in relation to this video. And the first was that I originally was going to do it over 2 tracks, so the classic Monza and the modern Monza, but then halfway through I thought it seemed silly to do times on a totally different track. The whole purpose is to see the times of all the cars on the same track, so I decided to stick with the classic Monza, which is part of the Kunos set Monza 66 road course. The second bit of housekeeping involves trying to be as accurate as possible, and the one thing in regards to that is I'm using for the 40s the Alfa Romeo Tipo, but I did some research and the vehicle I'm driving, I believe, is the 30s car, but I cannot find any representation of a 40s Grand Prix car. It just doesn't exist as far as I know. So I'm just taking a slight bit of creative license because I read that the Tipo stopped racing because of World War II, but did reappear in the late 40s or after the war, but it probably isn't really this version. It's a more advanced version, but I just couldn't find it or any other 40s GP vehicle to use. So please keep that in mind, that I'm taking a bit of creative license as far as the 40s car goes. And now the final and most important bit of housekeeping just before we go hot lapping is the fact that I'm not a true F1 driver. So what I thought I would do is drive every car stock, no changes at all not even gearing or fuel, not using DRS or the other feature that's available, just basically stock. Now this is because I'm not used to using DRS and don't really, or haven't got any keys mapped for it, don't really understand how to use it properly. But I thought what I would do is, because I do break quite a few world records on this track, but only because there's not a lot of cars that have driven on this track, especially the early ones. So if you want to try and break a world record, or at the very best get into the top 5 or top 10 RSR times, give it a go. But that's why I kept everything default. But there were two problems doing it that way, and the first one was the Formula 79, and that seems to be only because for some strange reason it has a very, very low top speed set as default. I'm sure it can go a lot quicker, but it only tops out at 250, when I say only, 250 kilometers an hour. So it was hamstrung, given that these are all very long straights and rely on top speed to get the time. So I knew that one would happen, but the car that surprised me the most in its slightly disappointing time was the current 2020 hybrid, and that's because I'm just not quite good enough yet to use the whole DRS, and where the hybrid gets its real speed is its incredible aero downforce. So there's not a lot of corners on this track for it to get that advantage, and a proper modern F1 track would propel it way above the other cars. But just for this particular video, it didn't do so well because it couldn't use either the DRS or the aero advantage that it usually might have as a modern Formula 1 car. And so on that basis, we'll move on to the Hotlaps. But if you like hotlapping, there's plenty of world records as well as top 5 and top 10 times available on RSR if that's your interest. And I'll have a link to each car in the description, or tell you where they come from, and you've got plenty of chance to get a top 5 or top 10 time on RSR if that's what you enjoy. So now I might revisit this too later on and do a modern track with doing full setups if anyone's interested in seeing that, or I might do another different type of video featuring these 10 cars again. So I hope you enjoyed these hot laps. So this is Michael signing out for Single Racer. I'll catch you next time. See you later, and let's explore 10 plus decades of GP hot lapping. soon.